Do you ever wake in the middle of the night feeling anxious and unable to shut your mind down about those ongoing concerns and worries? In this video, I'm going to break down why we do this and give you some simple mind coaching tips for getting back to sleep when it happens and also for stopping it happening altogether. Let's do it. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach, and for the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping them get control of anxiety. One of the aspects of anxiety that can leave us feeling pretty helpless to its effects and very much out of control of our own responses is when we wake in the middle of the night feeling anxious about something. It can very much give us the impression that we're not even safe from anxiety when we're asleep, because at any moment we might wake to those unpleasant thoughts and feelings. In fact, in the middle of the night, it can very much feel like our concerns have been amplified. I went through a phase in my life where I started to dread going to sleep because I was pretty certain at some point I would wake up with all of my worries feeling like immediate life-threatening situations that I desperately needed to take action on now. I started to view bedtime not as a time of rest, but as a time when I was vulnerable to my worst thoughts and feelings. But there's a reason why this happens. The reason why we feel excessive anxiety at night and our problems seem far worse than they did in the day is largely because we have no other distractions or occupying thoughts going on. If we imagine our mind like a team of people all doing different jobs in there, during the day there's a lot going on. At different times, different parts of our subconscious process will come to the fore and we'll become consciously aware of that particular thought or issue. We can't possibly be aware of all our issues all at once, we simply don't have the conscious capacity. So these things take turns depending on what we deem to be the most pressing or important thing to focus on at any given time. When we sleep, it's like our team have all shut down for the night. However, we might have certain parts of our mind that don't feel able to shut down because their tasks haven't been completed or their concerns haven't achieved resolution. This has the effect of amplifying the volume of those concerns. If everyone in a room is shouting at once, we don't hear much of what each person is shouting about because it's just noise. When we only have one person shouting in an otherwise silent room, we become very aware of their message. Add to that the fact that at night we're slap bang in the middle of doing nothing and taking no action, which is exactly the opposite of what that part of our mind wants. It wants action to be taken to fix whatever issue it's pondering. At night, we very often can't do anything about our problems, again, potentially causing that part to shout even louder. That part of our mind having free rein to shout its message as loud as it likes has that unpleasant effect of leaving us wide awake, unable to shut those thoughts down. As our mind attempts to inspire us to take action, we will feel restless and might even start to feel physically anxious as we start to produce cortisol, the stress hormone. Sometimes we might even find ourselves waking in a state of panic. This isn't always because of the thoughts playing on our mind and can just as easily be caused by the natural spike in cortisol we feel when we become conscious. It's part of our natural process, but when it's coupled with anxious thoughts and perhaps a fear of panic, if we've dealt with that in the past, this can lead to one of those unpleasant nighttime panic attacks. It's important to remember here that any physical distress caused by waking anxious in the night will pass and is nothing to feel threatened by. If we can accept the physical aspects of this process, then we avoid amplifying it into a state of panic. Your mind might be trying to get you to take action, but it's only the fear of that feeling that causes the full-blown panic. When we wake with anxious thoughts playing on our mind, the mistake we often make is to try and solve those puzzles. We might argue with that part of our mind or get sucked into trying to deal with the issue in our mind right now. We might even make mental or even physical notes of things to remember to do in the morning based on those concerns. However, far from shutting your mind down and putting it to rest, what that more frequently does is simply validate the fear. It says to that part of your mind, yes, this is concerning, but I'll deal with it in the morning. Well, guess what? That part wants it done now. And if you're accepting it as a genuine concern, it might not be so keen to step back and let you ignore it for a few hours. Remember, in the middle of the night, this is the only concern, and so it appears more pressing than it otherwise would. Our mind isn't in the habit of letting us ignore the biggest issue we have, so why would it do it now? Okay, rather than strategizing how you're going to deal with the threatening issue, the better approach is to diminish the perceived threat. We do this by drawing from experience. Remember, this isn't the first time you've woken in the night with concerns. You know how this story ends, so remind that part of your mind where those concerns always end up going. So a few months back, I started getting into a nasty habit of waking in the night to ongoing concerns about money, business, and any number of other things. I noticed that I would try and appease those thoughts by making a mental note to take certain actions in the morning. Then what happened? I woke up and realized none of these things were actually worth worrying about and weren't as threatening as they seemed in the early hours of the morning. More often than not, rather than taking action, I simply realized there was no action I needed to take. It took me a few times to realize this, but once I had, the next time it happened, rather than engaging with those thoughts and hunting down in my mind what the issue was, I simply reminded myself that it was more than likely, in fact highly probable, that these things didn't really matter. The important distinction here is that I wasn't simply telling that part of my mind it was worrying over nothing, I was actually reminding it that in the morning it would very much be telling me not to bother with this, the same as every other time this had happened. It was doing this that allowed my mind to shut down again and be at peace. Remember, these concerns, whilst they can seem like monsters in the dark, are in fact just shadows that are gone in the morning. We'll often make the mistake in our life of trying to control things that are actually out of our control. Even when we understand that, are able to notice when we're doing it and know how to shut that down, we still might be vulnerable to certain parts of our subconscious falling into that bad habit when we're not so active. Allowing those parts to be heard rather than pushed away is important. Working with our mind rather than fighting it is always the best solution. But that doesn't mean we can't draw from our previous experiences and remind those parts of a simple truth. If we've gone to bed, that means we recognize there's nothing we need to feel immediately threatened by. Any action will be better taken in the morning, and most of the time, in the light of day, we realize we'd been amplifying these concerns far beyond the required level. In my case, it took a couple of nights of pointing this out to myself to stop me from waking up in the night at all. But try this out for yourself and let me know how you get on. Perhaps you have your own strategies for dealing with middle of the night anxiety. Let me know in the comments below, and if you have any questions, put them down there too, and I'll do my best to answer them. I really hope this video has been of value. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. I'm also now doing a weekly live Q&A every Friday at 6 p.m. London time, where you can ask me your anxiety related questions, so please join me for that. Also, watch out for the members area coming soon, where I'll be adding video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive live streams. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.